Good evening and welcome to the City of Cedar Falls Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for this Wednesday, September 9th, 2020. And we'll start out with roll call. And Karen, can you take the roll?
Yes, Atkins, she's absent tonight. Hartley.
Here.
Holst.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Leeper.
Here.
Lynch.
Here.
Prideaux.
Here.
Saul is absent tonight as well. Sherrod.
Here.
Great, we have a quorum. First item tonight is to the approval of the minutes from the August 26, 2020 meeting. Is there any corrections or a motion to approve?
I've read all of the minutes and I see no reason why we shouldn't approve them. I make a motion to approve.
Great, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
So that motion carries. At this point, I would open the floor to anybody who would like to make a public comment on anything that's not on the agenda tonight. And I'm going to look to our attendees list here, see if there's anybody who would like to speak to us on something other than what's on the meeting agenda. If so, you can indicate by raising your hand and I will recognize you. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on. There is no old business tonight. We have 3 items of new business. The first item of new business is a central business district overlay design review, a facade review for the Blue Room Lounge. And JD, you're going to introduce that one tonight. So you're on.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Holmes. Good evening, everyone. I'll start with the first case today. So this is basically, one second, I'd like Karen to pull up the presentation. Oh, here we go. Thank you, Karen. So this is basically a central business district overlay design review for 201 Main Street. The applicant, Modern Design Architect, along with the owner of Blue Room Lounge, have requested this design review. Just a brief of information on this property. This is located on the corner of 2nd and Main. If we go to the next slide, this will give us the brief information about the background information on this building. So this building is built in 1890 and is located within Cedar Falls Downtown Historic District that was listed on National Register in 2017. Originally, many of you might know this is a National Bank building that was here before the Blue Room Lounge came in 1958. Today, the exterior reflects about the time of 1972 alterations. That includes wood sheathing with wood single pent mansard roof along the first floor north elevation. And the other storefront features a corner entrance along the Main Street with 2 sides window display and also a neon vintage sign for Orange Crush / Blue Room, which is projecting over the sidewalk. So this is basically the existing conditions of the 201 Main Street building. And to the image on the right, you would see this is the original building that which was built in 1890 looked like, which had a lot of Italianate architectural elements, mostly the fenestration, which were when renovated with Blue Room, I think they were all not present. So basically the request here in the next slide is all about getting this building back to the way it was in 1958. So that's basically what we're going to review today. Since this is in central business district design and the facade restoration or alteration includes substantial improvement clause, in the zoning code. That is the reason why we will be reviewing this today. So I would start with the main thing in the proposal, what we have. So image on the left is the facade that faces the main street. And as you can see that it's already brick in, the facade is laid out with bricks and windows and the storefront as existing. So the applicant proposes to replace or repair the worn out bricks on this particular facade. The image to the right is the back facade, where there will be, again, the repairing of the worn out bricks will be done, or replacing the bricks will be done. In addition to it, there is a wooden mansard roof that will be removed off. So that will be something that will be no longer seeing that. So removal of that awning along the backside would allow people to see the brick building that originally stood in 1958. And the other part is the projecting sign over public sidewalk along the main street. Applicant wishes to retain that because it's a vintage neon sign, and that will be restored. In the next slide, where some bigger changes are being done, I could just guide you through that. This is the facade that faces the West 2nd Street. And as you can see, I've tried to relate both the floor plan and the facade side by side. As you can see, currently the ground floor area is covered with wooden sidings and there is a wooden awning projecting over it, which will be removed as far as these alterations are proposed, and which will include which will allow the windows that are beneath that to come out as the facade. So as you can see on the image on the top, there will be restoration of the windows that are beneath the wooden shingles and the roof. And so basically, this is exactly how we will be seeing the building from the main street, from the corner of Main Street and the West 2nd Street. Basically, all the work and the renovation that is being done is through State Historic Tax Credit Program. So the applicant has received this grant, and the grant ensures that the building has to be transformed in 1950s architectural style. So basically, every guideline will be followed from State Historic Preservation Office with this renovation is concerned. There are different analysis as far as the staff report is concerned. I think you have got those in your packets. I would just run down to all of those in the next slide as far as the substantial improvement clause is concerned. So the proportion of the building will allow the building to be more rhythmic after those changes are made. Regarding the roof, there is no external roof is being proposed on this. So there is no structural alteration or the roof alterations. To the point number 3, pattern, the alteration would make the building look more uniform with the surrounding context. So now you see that there is a difference between the two patterns. One is cladded with wood, and the other one on the top is cladded with bricks. So you would, with the removal of the wooden sidings as well as the wooden awning, it will make more soothing composition, basically. The windows and transparencies, proposed alteration will not involve any new windows or placement or replacement of new windows, but it will just revive the the windows that are existing beneath the wooden facade. Regarding materials and textures, the proposed alteration will not include any new materials is concerned. However, the removal of wooden awning and the siding would allow the materials to be seen visibly from the street level to the passersby. So, and I think more or less we'll be seeing the brick pattern that was existing, and nothing more than that. Regarding the color, no new exterior paint is proposed. However, the framing in the windows will be painted as it is today. So there is like no new color will be introduced on it. Regarding the architectural features, basically these alterations will allow the applicant to push to revive the architectural elements that were used in 1950s. So basically, it's a great thing for the community because the building is being restored. The building entry clause, I think there are no entrance changes to the building, so it will be remaining as existing. There's no exterior mural or wall drawing that is involved in this, so we are fine with that. And on the last thing is a signage. So in this case, the applicant wishes to restore or keep the original vintage neon sign projecting over sidewalk. And as far as the other sign, there is no new signage being brought in at this time. So yeah, I think this is the basic analysis of the substantial improvement clause of zoning code. The Community and Development Department recommends approval of this facade review for 201 Main Street. And I think we would have our applicant online. So if he wants to speak something on this, Architect Jim from the firm might be present. If he wants to cite more on this, then yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, JD. Yes, is there anybody from the Blue Room who'd like to speak? Put your hand. Okay, yeah, Jim, I'm gonna get you turned on here. Okay, for some reason I'm not getting. Try this again. There we go. Okay, Jim, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, so yes, this building, we're going through the state historic tax renovation process with this. We do have the drawings ready to submit to the city building department. We also have the form filled out, just haven't had a chance to get that turned in yet. One of the comments that JD did make, just want to clarify that slightly. The state historic office will not allow the crush sign to come down as it was intrinsic to the period of significance. So we don't have the choice to pull it down or not. So that's something that they are requiring as part of this process to stay up.
Okay, very good.
Other than that, like you said, it's basically a brick restoration project.
All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, have any questions for Jim? All right.
Jim, can you speak to the brick's in pretty tough shape? How much of that is really anticipated to be saved versus replaced?
That is a conversation that we're still in the middle with the State Historic Office on. Their intent is to save every last piece that is possible, which is our standpoint too. But one of the issues, if you note, as just walking by, there is a lot of paint that has been unfortunately applied to the outside of the building, which has caused a lot of moisture to be trapped over the years. The moisture that's been trapped has been one of the major causes for the degradation of the wall. It's possible it was even sandblasted at some point in the past. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is removing the paint that is on the wall per the National Park Guideline process. And then once that paint is removed, we'll be able to assess all of the brick that is on there. And then basically if the brick is damaged, there's no point in keeping it because otherwise we'd be allowing moisture back in, which is the process that we're working right now to restore. So we anticipate we're going to be able to keep roughly anywhere from about 40 to 60% of the brick that's on the building.
Any other questions for Jim?
And how well will the new bricks match the old?
The new brick, there is a manufacturer out east. It's either in New Jersey or Pennsylvania. They manufacture the same brick. We did have color samples a while ago. I'm not sure where those went, but it's a very, very close match, probably a 96% or better match as far as color goes. So that's about the best we can do. One of the reasons why we have to go out east to get this brick is because it is an oddball size. Instead of being the nominal 8-inch, which is actually 7 and 3/8 inches long, or 5/8 inches long, this brick is actually 8 inches long. So it's a unique size to the East Coast that somehow ended up here a long time ago.
Any other questions for Jim? All right, thanks, Jim. I'm going to mute you again, unless you have
All right.
anything else.
I'm good.
All right, thanks. Bring it back to commission for discussion or a motion.
JD, I have a question about, isn't there a requirement for 50% of the Main Street facade to be glazing? Does that not apply here?
So as the architect, and I think the whole point of the project is to restore as per state historic preservation guidelines. So they would like to restore this building as it was, like in 1958. So that's exactly why we will be allowing the exact same thing, which is right now. So yes, I think you are right. There is the facade has to be like mix of 50-50 as per the code and stuff. But I think in this case, we won't be able to review this because the applicant has got the grant money from the state historic tax credit to do this. And I think the strong guideline is to follow the same code and make this building more similar to what it looked in 1950s. So yes.
Well, certainly could use some brick repair, and I think just removing a lot of that wood siding and mansard on the lower level is going to be a substantial improvement over what it is now, and pretty substantial, and stabilize the building too, which is really in need. Is there any other questions or discussion? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion. We're wanting to move this one forward, right? We'd like to get a recommendation today. Is that correct, JD?
Yes, I think we want the Planning and Zoning Commissions to make any comments and recommend this to council so that this can go to City Council, and then the applicant can start by providing building plans and start the restoration work.
I would make a motion to recommend approval to City Council.
It's been moved.
I'll second.
Second? Who seconded that? Who was the second?
Larson.
Larson. Thanks, Kyle. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and ask Ms. Howard to take the roll call vote.
Okay, Hartley,
Aye.
Holst,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Leeper,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Prideaux,
Aye.
Schrod.
Aye.
So that carries all ayes. JD, will that move on to the City Council right away then?
Yeah, we'll try to get that in the next council meeting. So yeah,
Okay, very good. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, our next item of business is a site plan review for the new Cedar Falls High School. And JD, back
Yes.
to you to introduce.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hose. Yes, the second item on agenda is the Cedar Falls High School site plan. Many of you might recall this. We did have the rezoning request like earlier. I think I'm just starting with the place where this will be located. So the first slide that shows the location map, basically. So as you might recall, the area to the left, which is covered in the blue, is the site which is being rezoned at this moment. And I think council has passed the second reading, and it will be going to the third reading in the next council meeting. The majority of the portion is currently zoned as P, which is the public zone, and the other half, other little portion is being rezoned to B from A1. So we'll be seeing those. I think in the next council meeting we should be able to finalize those things. So the request here by the petitioner, which is Cedar Falls Community School District, and Brian Senderman from Envision Architect, is to build a 305,000 square feet of new high school building. And this is the area, which is about 69.6 acres. And the parcel is located west of PE Center Drive and north of West 27th Street. I just like to give some background information on the abutting site. So to the right, we have the university. Over the west, we will have the proposed West Fork subdivision. So those are the contacts for this. And in the next slide, we can start with the site plan, which is being proposed. So as you all can see, the highlighted red portion is the entire site for high school campus. And I think this is in public zoning district, and for which normally we don't have any rules and regulation as far as the zoning guidelines are concerned. And it is expected that such governmental authorities cooperate with the city and encourage structure and use of public spaces within the general guidelines followed by the city. So that is the reason why we are reviewing. And also, this is a very big project for the community, so we want this to be presented on this platform, and we want to allow the people to view this before this is finalized. So that is the other purpose of this review today. So the site plan basically has many components to it. As you all can see in the next slide, that the proposed building is proposed in the very far away from the West 27th. So the building is about 600 feet setback from the West 27th. And the building is about 874 feet from the west lot line, which will be abutting future subdivision. And the building is 940 feet from the east lot line, which is the PE Center Drive. And the building is about 290 feet from the north property line. So basically, building sets back really behind from any abutting major roads. The proposed site plan, as you can see, I've highlighted in yellow area. That is basically the building footprint for the high school. The building footprint on the main level, and there is another building, a small footprint on the lower level, which will match the main level in terms of height. So the main building basically occupies indoor gym and athletic facility, the administrative areas, common areas, and it also includes auditorium. Whereas the building at the back, which sits on the lower level, includes studio spaces and faculty rooms. So those are the main components of the building. We'll get into more details in the elevation section of how this looks like from outside, but this is like the general configuration of it. In the next slide, you would be seeing the parking areas proposed. So basically, parking here is divided into three different sides: west, east, and south. To the south, the bigger yellow area is basically the visitor and student parking, which is segmented into 6 different parts, like with lot A to lot F. To the west of the main building is the staff parking area, which is highlighted on the map that you're seeing. Towards the east, which is along the PE Center Drive, is where the overflow parking is being proposed. And to the north of the stadium is where the future parking is anticipated, which will connect the overflow parking. So basically, this is like the east, west, and the south where the parking areas are proposed. No parking areas are currently proposed along the edge of north, or this is all we have. On the next slide, I can walk you through the requirements. So total parking provided is basically by estimating about 200 staff members and about 1,400 students. And there are 2 guidelines that we usually follow. One is the city's standard requirement, which is 480 spaces for a high school development. And for SUDA standard, the parking requirements are 667 spaces. In this case, the proposed parking is about 1,053 stalls, which is like way over the required parking area. And those 1,053 parking stalls also include 21 ADA stalls and 8 motorcycle and scooter stalls that is being distributed around the campus. Because we're talking about parking, I would just like to highlight 3 different things that will be helpful for many people to understand. So parking facilities for the motorcycle stalls will be just located by the main entrance. As you can see on your screen, it's labeled as 1.4 on the image. Those are where the bike parkings will be allotted. The bicycle parking is provided on the end around the entrance of the school building, basically, and those are labeled as 1.2. So those will be the parking spaces for the bikes. The other thing that we want to highlight is parking. The proposed parking also includes an electric charging station, which is placed at the level of 1.3. So the school is trying to consider the future requirements for electric car as well. So we have 1 charging station at this point of time. And so basically this covers the whole parking section that we have on the proposed plan. The next slide will talk about the landscape in contrast with the building. So as you can see, the yellow area is basically where the building footprint sits. About the landscape, it's basically before I get into landscape details, I would like to highlight the 2 important things that school is working with CFU is to have solar garden on their property. So as you can see, the red circle on the left indicates a solar garden, which is about 0.25 acre, and the architect along with CFU is also trying to have solar panels on the roof of the building, which is about 0.75 acres. So those are the features that will be introduced as far as solar panels and the lighting of the school is concerned. Talking about the landscape, I think the entire site is surrounded with prairie grass. All the parking area are screened with large shade trees. As you can see, they all abut the parking areas. The area north of the school building will be screened by large shade trees, and also the coniferous trees will be planted to provide buffer from the adjacent development. As you can see, there is a nice courtyard between the 2 buildings, like one that sits on the main and the building that sits on the lower. There's a courtyard in the middle. So those would include the shrub plantings, ornamental trees, and shrubs. The entrance to the main high school building, which is the southern facade, will also include perennial plantings, shrubs, ornamental trees, coniferous trees, and there will be a mixture of shrubs and trees that would provide a good buffer from the parking areas. Along the northwest corner, as it's highlighted on this map, this site is reserved for tree seedling to develop a forested area, basically, which will be planted by volunteers. So as you can see, there is a zigzag area along the northwest of the site, which is just next to the field. That will be planted by volunteers, and the idea is to make that as a forest area so that it's screened properly from the future subdivision along the west property line. So yeah, I think those are the basic landscaping that we have got. Just to remind everybody, we don't have any guidelines as far as public zoning district site plan is concerned from our zoning code. So we are just basically reviewing all these items for the purpose for viewers to see this, and before it's executed, it's for the commission to see what's going to come up in the city. In the next slide, I would just like to point out to the other areas or the features of the building we have. So currently there are about 3 practice possible fields that are being proposed. One is along the northwest corner. The other one is along the northeast corner. And the one is going to be just south of the proposed phased stadium. So there is going to be a stadium facility and about 3 practice fields. The one on the northeast and on the south, on the northwest are the possible fields. So, the school is planned, but it's not necessary that they will be built, or depends upon the requirements, basically. So I just wanted to touch base about this other features. In the next slide, you would see that the highlighted red area next to the building footprint is reserved for dumpsters, and there is a truck dock that is present. So basically this area will be used for all kinds of services, purpose like services and maintenance of the building, as well as access to the dumpsters and trash removals. In the next slide, you would also point out these are some of the future areas that the applicant has proposed. Along the north of the school building is the future addition that will be done when necessary, but they've just reserved this spot for the future building. Along the east of the school building on the lower level is where the future pool area is going to come. And the future field is going to be placed between the stadium and the main school building. And then there is a future tennis court proposal along the west side of the proposed building. So these are basically the areas that are reserved for future development. In the next slide, I would walk you through the circulation of the site. So as you can see, there will be reconstruction done for the West 27th Street, and there will be about 3 roundabouts that will be proposed in this site vicinity. From those 2, I think the westward the west roundabout will be accessed as one of the entry point to the site, which is marked by yellow arrow. The center is the other access point to the site from West 27th Street. So there are 2 entrances from the West 27th Street. One will be used by students and visitors, which is the center one. And the other one to the west will be used more by faculties, because this directly goes to the faculty's parking area. And this route will also be used for bus accessibility. So there is a bus route that will be proposed. So even the buses will be using this route to go in and out of the site. There is another access from the PE Center Drive, which is from the east, as you can see, that will allow people to drop in and drop off as well. There are two drop-off points on this site. One is just located south of the main entrance building, and one is located just west of the lower level building. Basically, this would allow more people to access the school building on an easy level. So, and then there is one west axis. As you can see, there is a yellow arrow from the west. That's basically a future street connection. This future street connection will be established after the proposed West Fork subdivision is in place. So this will allow direct access to the site for vehicles. And also, there is also a trail connection that will be proposed, which I'll be talking about in our next slide. So basically, this was all the vehicular access points. Now we get into more details. There are three different kind of arrows which I have tried to showcase on the site plan. So we did discuss about yellow arrows. That's basically the entrance points to the site from west, east, and the south. The blue arrows basically are the arrows that shows the pedestrian connection from the neighboring streets. So as you all can see, it's like well connected from West 27th Street and along the PE Center Drive as well. And as you can see on the map, that there is a future Northwest Trail connection that is also proposed, which will be going in along with the West Fork subdivision to tie in there. This will allow students living in the neighborhood to walk, directly access or access through a bike, basically. So those are the pedestrian accesses to the site. And the green arrows basically indicates the entrance points to the main school building. So as you can see, it's well connected with different areas and well connected with pedestrian trails and also vehicular access points. So basically, this is how the access routes will be planned. In the next slide, I will just walk you through the building elevations. So building elevation, as you can see on your screen, there are about three different materials that will be used for as far as materials on the building facades are concerned. The proposed building looks more of contemporary style architecture. The main school building is about 1.5 story height, and with auditorium and gym areas, which will be further raised up to about 50 feet in height. So as you can see that on the second elevation on the left, you would see the auditorium and the gym area are rising from the rest of the facade. So those will be the higher heights, which is about 50 feet in height. The other building north of building sits at the lower level, as we discussed in our previous presentation. So the building height of the lower building is about 2 story tall. So that will match up with the existing height of the main building. As far as materials is concerned, the high school building will be finished with brick, precast concrete panel of 2 tones, which is dark and light, and metal panels resembling wooden textures to add a contrasting color to the concrete palette. So basically, those are the 3 major materials that will be used. I did talk about there is a small courtyard between the 2 sets of building that will be completely transparent. And for harnessing the daylight, I think translucent polycarbonate panels will be used both in the indoor gym area as well as on the lower level building to harness all the natural lights as possible. So those will be used, and I think those are the major materials that will be used across as a palette for entire school building. In the next slide, I would just walk you again through the proposal of the sign. So currently we haven't got any detailed sign plans, but as far as the elevations are concerned, we were able to see there are 2 wall signs that are proposed along the south facade. One would include like channel letters, and the other is just the Cedar Falls school logo. And there is one sign along the west side as well. And there are two monument signs that will be proposed just north of two roundabouts that will be served as the entrance to the site. So those are the details for the sign. In the next slide, we would just see the detention basins. So as you would have observed in the staff report, basically the whole site is divided into three different segments. So the detention basin on the north is the largest detention basin. Then the detention along the west, which is just west of the proposed solar area, solar panels, is the second detention basin, and the third detention basin is where it's just north of West 27th Street, which is divided into two parts to capture all the waters from the abutting parking lots and the fields. So those are the basic details we have for detention basin is concerned. I think the calculation are being attached in the staff report for further review. In the next slide, I would like to point out some details regarding sanitary sewer. So this is to note that there is currently no sanitary sewer readily available to the site. So it will need to be extended from the West 27th Street. And the school district and other benefited properties such as West Fork Development will then be assessed with sewer tapping fees, and they will have to pay their fair proportional share for this extension of sanitary sewer. The other thing I would like to highlight is the street improvements. School district will be responsible for improvements to PE Center Drive up to and including the eastern access point to the high school site. So school will be taking care of those things, and the city will also be contracting for engineering design and construction services for both sewer projects and road improvements along the West 27th Street. Other technical comments as per our technical committee review is school district will be responsible for the construction of a properly sized water system from existing 16-inch water main along the West 27, including in the installation are valves, fire hydrants, and water services. And final gas service meter placement must be done with CFU gas and water operations. Electric service and transformer location needs to be coordinated with CFU electrical operators as well. So basically, I just wanted to run by those things. Our recommendation is about reviewing at this point of time and discussing of the site plan. As we all know, that is a big case. So at this point of time, we recommend to review and discuss. The project architect, Brian Sanderman from Envision, is present today, and he would like to give a brief presentation as well. So maybe after my, he can just take over this now. And if you have any questions, I'll be available to answer any questions for you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, JD. Brian, you want to give us some additional information on the project?
Thanks. Thanks for that, JD. I don't know if I can add a whole lot to what JD has put out there. That was very thorough. So I think he has kind of talked you through the majority of the details of the project, and but maybe just a couple things in terms of how we approached the site development of the project. As you saw, the main entrance is off of 27th Street there. The focus was to organize the site with keeping the main parking lot in that south area, create a singular entrance for security. As the school starts their day, they'll have one entrance into the building off to the south. So it was important to kind of zone the site to have the majority of parking located there. And then as you saw, the staff parking to the west allows staff parking and buses to have an entrance to the west side and come in. And then in terms of the rest of the site, the building is pushed back and organizes the community spaces along that south entrance. So gym and auditorium are off of that main entrance. And then the learning studios, as JD mentioned are towards the back in that two-story element. And we like the concept of pushing that element to the back of the site, and keeping all the traffic flow, et cetera, and the more public areas off the front. So kind of organizing the site from public to more private use, as well as the building is trying to do that functionally as well. Big picture, as JD mentioned, we're kind of looking at this project as setting the school in the prairie. So really a lot of the site will have natural prairie grass, trying to approach it very sustainably, partnering with our neighbors across the street. Tallgrass Prairie Center with UNI is across the street. So Mark Kuiper with Ritland Kuiper has been working with them on the different mixes that we'll have as part of our prairie development around the site. So that's exciting. Partnering with Dry Run Creek a little bit. They're looking for grant opportunities as well. We're incorporating bioswales into the parking lots to help with that water quality component, as those lots are drained into the detention areas that JD pointed out along the north and south areas of the site. I think those were some of the kind of key things I wanted to point out. One other small detail, we will be connecting also to the east side, to the sidewalk / bike trail that UNI has recently put in with their new field development. They're relocating some of their fields that were on this site to the west side of the Unidome, and there's a sidewalk that goes to the Unidome connection. And we'll be connecting to that area as well to create some connectivity between this site and that site as well for that creates a bike trail connection. You can kind of get around the Unidome on the north side and connect up to that trail through some of the driveways, et cetera, over there on UNI side of it as well to help with bike connections to the site. Other than that, I think JD covered a lot of it. One specific thing related to parking would be, we are proposing an area of our parking to be an alternate when we bid the project. So lots A and B, which were on the south end of the west side, there's about 236 stalls there. So it would take our count down to about 819, which, as JD mentioned, would still be above the kind of benchmarking that you would look for with this project. We're looking at some alternate cost options, and that's one of those that we are proposing. Just wanted to let you know that. So I think that's kind of it. So we'll kind of open it up to you guys for questions after we've kind of talked through the details of it.
Great, thank you, Brian. So JD, this is going to be a discussion item for tonight. If there's any questions and discussion, and then you're going to bring that back at the next meeting, correct?
Yes. I think that's the idea, and we want like many viewers to see this, have questions, ask, and basically we'll be going along with another presentation or maybe questions in the next P&Z.
Yep, but we don't actually have to, P&Z is not going to be required to actually take action on this in terms of approving anything. So people should know that. So this is really good public information for people to get to know what the project is all about. So, right.
That is true. Yeah. So it's just for discussion, and if any comments, we can ask the architect to address or have any questions.
Yep.
The commission is welcome to ask.
So at this time, I would look to see if there's any attendees here at the meeting who would like to ask a question or make a comment. If so, you can go ahead and raise your hand on the Zoom participants list, and I'll recognize you. And I'm not seeing any takers on that. Bring it back to the commission for any questions or discussion you might have.
I'm just really excited about it. I think the environmental considerations are reassuring. It's really great to see all of those, the bioswales, the solar panels, that's all awesome, and the connectivity with the trails. Good work.
Any other thoughts or comments to share? It's obviously a pretty big and impressive project for the city of Cedar Falls, so we look forward to its continued development. So,
Yeah, Andy was not able to make it tonight, Andy Petit, so he wish he could be here to at least to make his comments, but appreciates everyone's work and insight and input in developing this from the city side and helping us kind of through the development. We've been meeting with the city through the process as well. So Karen has been seeing this plan for a while now, and JD is up to speed as well. So we've been getting their input as we've been going along. So they've been very helpful in the process.
great. All right, well, thank you very much. Hearing no further discussion, we'll move on to our last item of regular business tonight on the new business calendar. And that is a land use map amendment and rezoning from office and business park to planned development, and some rezoning from A1 agricultural district to R1, and a residential district to MU mixed use residential district. So that's a whole mouthful. And Ms. Howard, you get to explain it all to us. So I'll turn it over to you.
I will share the screen again here. Okay, this is the location of the proposed, there's two items here, as Mr. Holst described, both a land use map amendment to our comprehensive future land use map, and also our proposal to rezone the property that's shown with a star here. The location is along Cedar Heights Drive, just north of Huntington, as Cedar Heights Drive curves down toward Viking Road. The property is currently zoned A1 agriculture on the west side, and there's some properties along the east side that are currently zoned R1 that were part of an older subdivision from some time ago that was zoned R1 but remain undeveloped. Here you can see the rezoning plat. The western approximately 12 acres. The proposal is to rezone that from agriculture to mixed use. And the east, approximately 3 acres then from R1 to mixed use. The A1 zone, as you know, serves as a holding zone until municipal services are accessible to the site, allows for agricultural uses in the meantime. And the R1 residential district is intended for development of low density residential neighborhoods, single family basically, and duplexes. The mixed use residential zoning district allows for master planned residential on larger tracts of land. It does allow the flexibility in lot sizes and dimensional standards, but it has to be in accordance with a master plan to ensure that the neighborhood develops in an orderly fashion with good traffic circulation and open space and other amenities for that higher quality living environment expected in the community. The proposal is to incorporate this new land area into the larger Pinnacle Prairie mixed use district and update that master plan accordingly. So we'll just run through that tonight and show you what that proposal is all about. So just a little bit of background history on the larger Pinnacle Prairie development. It was originally proposed back in the early 2000s with a master plan at that time. And then in 2015, that master plan was updated again. So here you see on your screen that 2015 master plan for the entire Pinnacle Prairie site, which is over 600 acres. You can see on here, there's a lot of different aspects of that, from the yellow area here, which is largely residential, single family, to some townhomes, It's showing a little commercial area on the east side, connections from Cedar Heights Drive into the neighborhood from the east. On the west side, of course, you have Western Home and the whole development that's occurring there. And on the northwest side, you have some business development, commercial development in that area. Along the south, we have some development that has occurred with some commercial along Viking Road. That area is actually zoned, some of that is zoned Highway 1, but was part of that original master plan. Here you can see the current build out of Pinnacle Prairie as we know it today. So there's a lot of land yet to develop within this master planned area. So starting off then with compliance, as we review rezoning requests, we always look at the compliance with the comprehensive plan. And as noted, the future land use map needs to be amended to support the rezoning that's requested to mixed use. The future land use map designates the area as a combination of planned development, office, business park, and greenways and floodplain. You can see that future land use map on the screen now. The light area is designated as light pink area is office and business park. The darker pink area is planned development. And of course, the green area is greenways and floodplain. That's the floodplain for Green Creek. The planned development is what is being requested here. And to maintain that greenways and floodplain designation. Whoops, did not mean to go forward there. As you can see, the line there is rather oddly aligned there. It's kind of diagonally across the site. So it really makes sense to incorporate this larger area into that planned development of the larger Pinnacle Prairie area. That additional residential that is proposed in the area will then help to support the existing zoning in the vicinity for commercial development along Cedar Heights Drive. So staff finds that this is a reasonable proposal to amend the future land use map to support this rezoning request. Moving on to the refined master plan for Pinnacle Prairie East. I just wanted to highlight the fact that in the mixed use zoning district, the owner of a property can seek approval of a mixed use zoning designation with simultaneous submittal of a comprehensive development site plan. So that's what was done in 2004, and then in 2015 it was updated again. So the code states that zoning approval cannot be given without the approval of a development site plan. So what the owner has done today, and with assistance from his development team, is propose a refined master plan for that eastern portion of the development. So the purpose of today's meeting is really to introduce the rezoning request and that revised master plan for that eastern portion of Pinnacle Prairie, which in the master plan is labeled the villages. But the staff notes that in 2015 master plan, it was really more of a bubble diagram showing the various land uses. The new proposed concept indicates a proposed street layout, shows the shared open space and the regional stormwater management facilities in more detail. Also shows the proposed distribution of the housing types and the land uses throughout the site. And then really shows that more of a delineation of the floodplain and how it coincides with the proposed development. Staff also notes that there will need to be an update to the developmental procedures agreement to address the new proposal, and also to address several unresolved items from that 2015 master plan update and agreement. So here you can see on the screen a draft Pinnacle Prairie East concept plan that was submitted by the applicant for a more refined, that's just the eastern portion of Pinnacle Prairie, east of Oster Parkway, basically. get yourself oriented here. Viking Road is on the south as it curves north to Cedar Heights Drive. And really it's just the eastern portion. All the western portion is not shown in this, so that's not the subject of any kind of changes at this point. And then zooming in just a little bit about that, the land uses proposed are similar to what was proposed previously. Single family homes are in the yellow. The townhomes are shown in the south west corner here in brown. And then a proposed multifamily area on the east side, which is the subject of the rezoning. There is a small commercial area in the south east corner, just south of some existing acreages here that are not part of this development. The proposal is to use the current Pinnacle Prairie General Design Guidelines to guide the design of the new development. And a few of those pages of the design guidelines were included in your packet that show basically what's expected as far as building design, landscaping, signage. The whole development really, the owner wanted to have a prairie style aesthetic. And so the design guidelines reflect that, and the owner proposes to use those same Pinnacle Prairie General Design Guidelines to guide the new development of any future buildings here in this location. With regard to specific land use types, the townhomes are really focused on somewhat on a alley-loaded design here. The current layout needs a little further refinement, and staff would like to work with the developer on refining that to ensure that there's adequate vehicular and pedestrian access. Now, this is just a concept plan, but we want it to be based on some level of reality, because we know that the next step, of course, will be to preliminary plat this, and we want it to be something that's realistic and can be translated then into a preliminary plat. For the neighborhood commercial area, the future proposed buildings also would need to meet the design guidelines, and street access and trail connections will be, of course, important to ensure that the neighborhood residents have easy access to this area without having to go out to the arterial street and go around. So here we have a blown up view of the subject of the rezoning, the area to mixed use. You can see on the western, approximately 12, what's proposed in the multifamily area is approximately 12 units per acre. And that is clustered outside the floodplain. You can see in the center part here of Green Creek. And on the western portion will be, is proposed to remain single family. Staff notes that as shown here in the concept, the buildings would be oriented toward the street with parking kind of located behind, under, or to the side of the buildings and screened with landscaping. Each building should have good access to the open space and amenities and trails. And I think with this concept, that's the intent, to try to show what the potential could be in the future. Now, it's not exactly known what will be developed. I think the intention is to sell this off to another developer that might then come in, but they would have to basically comply with the general principles of what's proposed here. Moving on to the street network and traffic circulation. The 2015 master plan illustrated the major roadway alignments, access locations, and proposed intersections for the major streets, Viking Road, Oster Parkway, this Prairie View Road that goes through the center, and just some indications of potential streets. And then the arrows shown here were shown to represent basically future street alignments as the development was refined further. The lots and the blocks were not illustrated. It was just a bubble diagram showing the potential land uses here. So it's kind of difficult to understand how the streets and the trails and the open space and the stormwater management will function as a whole. So staff asked the applicant to refine that at this point in time. It's time to really look down into that a little bit closer and refine that concept plan to start address some of these issues, and that will then be a preliminary or a precursor to a preliminary plat. So here you have a more refined concept with the street networks, stormwater management. You can see here and how these might fit all together. So there's many positive aspects to what's being proposed here. There's really good public access to the trail network that's proposed. And there's a 3.5 acre park that fronts on Prairie View Road, the extension of where Prairie View Road is proposed to go here. Here's that 3.5 acre park. And has good frontage on 2 streets, so it will be really accessible to the residents that live in the area. The streets are laid out in an attractive curvilinear fashion, and yet they're fairly well connected. Some of the blocks get a little bit longer than maybe we would like to see, but certainly that can be refined as the plat is developed. The open space is really well distributed throughout the neighborhood, and you can see that it really coincides with the floodplain and the stormwater management that's proposed for the site. There's still some issues that staff wants to point out that need to be addressed. Probably the biggest one is that that street connection that was shown in the 2015 master plan as extending over to Cedar Heights Drive is no longer shown on the concept plan. So staff finds that to be problematic. There is no east-west connection from the entire Pinnacle Prairie development over to Cedar Heights Drive. And that's a really long distance for no east-west street connections in the community. It's over 4,000 feet between Green Hill Road and Viking Road. So there's real need for a street connection to go across to provide that connectivity within and throughout the traffic circulation throughout the entire Pinnacle Prairie development and the community as a whole. In general, collector streets, we like them to provide connections that are spaced approximately every quarter mile. So having one connection within 4,000 feet is at least at the minimum that should be expected here. The 2015 master plan, as I noted before, did show a street connection here, did show integration of the single family areas. This, of course, area now is being proposed to change to be incorporated into that multifamily area. We think that that street connection still should be shown here. Another couple points on that particular issue is the upzoning is proposed to allow medium to high density multifamily from what was proposed as single family previously in this particular location. So it's really critical to maintain that connection between this eastern portion and the larger Pinnacle Prairie development to the west. Provides good access for anybody living in these areas to access the employment and commercial areas that are in Pinnacle Prairie to the west. We have quite a healthcare network, a lot of employment further to the west in Pinnacle Prairie. It provides that east-west traffic circulation for this development in the larger community as well. And also should be noted that with a development, the number of units that are proposed here, it's really a public safety issue that there should be more than one means of access to this large number of units, and having two ways to get in and out of this development and good traffic circulation is pretty important. So staff recommends eliminating this cul-de-sac here labeled as Court A and extending that to the east to connect to Cedar Heights Drive, and this would basically follow what was the alignment of a previous farm access road that extended across Green Creek in that location. The upzoning will allow more density, so it will help to offset the additional cost of crossing the floodplain there in that location. The development density that's shown is really predicated on the land area that's in the floodplain. So the development density that the numbers that are shown here reflect the entire area. And it's been basically clustered outside the floodplain, but that development density that's proposed is including this area and part of that calculation. Staff also wants to note that planning the concept plan area will help to determine the cost for recapturing the cost of all these street connections and the connection across the creek, of course, from all the benefited properties within this area. Really helps to understand those costs and help those spread those costs over the larger area, not just that small multifamily area. So staff finds that the proposed increase in development density is acceptable as long as that adequate street access is provided and parking and open space amenities are provided to create that high quality living environment for the future residents of this multifamily area. Also want to note that the city is currently making improvements to Cedar Heights Drive. There is some improvements being made at the intersection of Huntington here to allow for a potential future roundabout at the intersection of Huntington and Cedar Heights Drive. This potentially could serve that commercial area and potential means of access. As you note here in these large acreages here, while there's no proposal for any development there, and they may remain that way for a very long time, but at some point in time, one or more of those property owners may decide that they would like to develop the rear portions of those properties, and providing some means of street access to allow that to occur should be something we'd study more closely at the platting. With regard to public access to public services, which is another criteria that we have for rezoning property from agriculture to an urban zone. Water, electric, gas, and communications utilities are available in accordance with CFU policies. The sanitary sewer lines do exist east-west across this area. They're shown in purple here, and they also come north-south here. So there's good access to sanitary sewer that should be able to be connected for any development in this area. Our regional stormwater management system is proposed with the master plan that follows basically that natural drainage pattern, and the floodplain for Green Creek is noted here on this slide. You can see in blue here, that is the floodplain for Green Creek itself, and then tributaries to Green Creek. I just wanted to point out that new lots will not be allowed to be platted with more than 25% of any lot in the floodplain. That's part of our subdivision code. So that is something else that we would like to work with the developer to make sure that their concept plan doesn't give a false impression of the lots that could be developed in the floodplain, because new lots are not allowed to be platted entirely within the floodplain. So those areas of the concept plan will need a little adjustment to reflect the floodplain. With regard to open space parks and trails, as I've noted previously, it's pretty well connected here with trail system. The mixed use district does require 10% of the land area to remain as open space. That calculation was done with the master planning in 2015, was calculated. The open space and trails coincide with the floodplain. The trail network will extend from the west. You can see it coming in through here, coming along Prairie View Road, and then will connect into the larger stormwater management and creek area here, this natural area. They extend and also connect into that park area. So nice bike access, pedestrian access to those open space features. According to the previous agreement, 2% of the open space must be developed as parkland, and those calculations were made previously all those calculations will need to be updated with this additional area, if this area is rezoned to mixed use. And that will have to be addressed in the development agreement moving forward. With regard to technical comments, just note that a preliminary and final plat will be required prior to any land sales within this master planned area. A number of piecemeal platting efforts has happened in the past, and that's not been very successful. It's really, we want to note that it's not really in the interest of the owner or the community, since so much of the infrastructure is shared. Platting a larger area will help to determine how the benefits and costs should be shared for the shared stormwater management, the parks and open space, and of course the street connections. So we're going to be looking for a larger preliminary plat for this area as the next step in the development process, and then smaller areas can be final platted as development occurs. So the other technical comment is to address the previous development procedures agreement. There's certain provisions that were not addressed per that agreement. The agreement called for a plan for a reconfiguration of the Goldenrod Street stub. In 2015, it was agreed that Goldenrod would not be that street would not be extended, but in return, the agreement was that the street stub would be reconfigured as an attractive trailhead rather than just to appear to be a street stub remaining into the future. The completion date in the agreement was for September 1st, 2016. The agreement also called for submitting a plan for landscaping amenities in the Prairie Parkway Prairie View roundabout. The plan was supposed to be submitted by 2015 with construction in 2016. These have not occurred according to that agreement, so staff recommends that prior to approval of the rezoning, the owner pay funds into an escrow equivalent to the cost of these improvements, and then the city would construct those improvements as a public project. So obviously then a new developmental procedures agreement will need to be drafted and signed prior to setting a public hearing at council for the rezoning request. So at this point in time, the Community Development Department recommends discussion of the proposed amendment to the future land use map and the rezoning, and then continue that discussion to a future meeting that would allow time for staff and the developer to work out additional details of the master plan as we've discussed, and resolve outstanding issues of compliance with the previous procedures agreement for that larger Pinnacle Prairie development. And I would be happy to answer any questions, but I know that the development team for Pinnacle Prairie, there's a number of folks that have zoomed in on our meeting and also may want to make some comments on the proposal.
Thank you, Karen. So this is kind of just the first step on a discussion basis with, it sounds like with maybe a little bit unknown timing going forward on the development, because it sounds like there's quite a few things that need to be, or a number of fairly significant things that needed to be discussed further in order to advance this. Is that kind of the summary?
Yeah, that's a good summary.
Okay. At this time, I would open it to any of our attendees who would like to make a comment on this or provide additional information. And I will recognize you. I see we've got one, Daniel. I'll try to.
Mr. Holst, I think the developers on the would like to probably speak first. Mike is part of the development team.
Okay, I will try to recognize Mike here. For some reason, I am unable to. Oh, wait a second. There it goes. Come on.
Okay.
There we go. Mike, are you there?
I'm there. I just unmuted myself.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll introduce myself. I don't know if you can see, we can see you, of course. I'm not sure if you can see us, but I'm Mike Shappy with Shappy Design Associates.
Mike, you're just a pleasant voice we're listening to, so.
Okay. Good. I'm in my pajamas, so that's okay.
All right.
Now, we've been working with Pinnacle Prairie for about the last 6 years now. We were part of that 2015 master plan update, and we've continued to work with the development team on reviewing plans and projects as they've come through, and have enjoyed administering those developments and ensuring the consistency with the master plan and the design guidelines. I've got also with us from our side of the development team, Carrie Hansen with our office. She's our Director of Planning and Government Services. And also Wendell Lucas with VJ Engineering. He's our engineer for the project. So given the possible questions that we've got, I've got them on so that we can all discuss this collectively. Karen did a very nice job and a very detailed and thorough job of going through the staff report and explaining the points. A couple other points just to wrap that up and give you a little bit more of a big picture issue. Mr. Oster did purchase back, and it was in January of this year, an additional 15 acres on Cedar Heights. That's generally where that multifamily area is that Karen was referring to. So that was just in January. And that 15 acres includes land that is both on the east side of the Green Creek open space corridor, as well as a couple, 2 or 3 acres on the west side of the Green Creek corridor. And originally we were thinking about just bringing that property and that 15 acres in and zoning it a traditional, or requesting an R4 and an R2 traditional zoning classifications on both of those parcels to accomplish the same sort of development that we're talking about here, multifamily and single family. But in the discussions that we've had with the staff, we agreed with them that we should bring this new property in as an MU so that it is connected to Pinnacle Prairie, and probably more importantly, from our standpoint and I think from the city standpoint, that the design guidelines that we've already been using for Pinnacle Prairie can then be applied to the new development of this additional land that was just acquired. We're very pleased and proud of what's been developed to date throughout Pinnacle Prairie, the looks of the architecture. We hope the city feels the same way, but we look forward to continuing that same quality of development with this new land that we're adding. There was on the 2015 plan, as Karen had shown it, a little lobe of land that went directly out to Cedar Heights. On that master plan that she showed, it was part of the yellow single family representation. What we're looking to do is incorporate what was that single family thin sliver into the multifamily request. The reason that it was shown as single family is because it's a very narrow strip of land. It's about 240 feet wide in the north-south direction. And there's not a lot that one can do with a strip of land that's about 800 feet long by about 230, 40, 50 feet wide. But we owned it. We need to do something with it. So we showed that as single family in hopes to maybe acquire some additional land adjacent to that so that we could put in a city street and have single family lots on either side. Right now, there just isn't enough room to do that. All we could do right now is a single loaded street. And if we were not going to cross the creek under the original 2015 plan, we would have had a very long cul-de-sac. That's the only thing that we could have done. And it would have been a cul-de-sac that would have probably been 700 or 800 feet long. We knew that wasn't, a cul-de-sac of that length wasn't desirable by the city. And so the only other option to incorporate a street was to connect it with a through street over crossing the creek and into the main part of Pinnacle Prairie. That's the background as to why and what we were trying to accomplish with that original road crossing or the creek crossing in the 2015 plan. One thing I wanted to point out is that the land that is adjacent to the Green Creek subdivision, the new land that we've acquired, it's about 3 acres of land. And our proposal is that land be developed as single family, essentially just an extension of the single family land currently shown on the 2015 master plan. And the multifamily that we're proposing would be limited to the land that is east of the Green Creek drainage corridor. So that would put any multifamily development about 350 feet from any single family area of the Green Creek subdivision. And that's very consistent in terms of building size, density, and even layout to a certain extent. It's very similar to the Cedar Hills condominium project, which is immediately north of our proposed multifamily. Similar density. I think we do probably have more open space than that project if you're going to look at it and compare that. More open space amenities, and of course we are connecting it to the main part of Pinnacle Prairie with our open space and trail system. But as Karen mentioned, accurately so, we still are in disagreement on the creek crossing issue, candidly. We think that with the incorporation of this additional land, now that we can create its own, we have enough room to create its own little multifamily neighborhood, that from a sound planning principle and an environmental principle, we should try to, if possible, limit the amount of road crossings that we have over our floodplain and open space corridors. As long as, if we're not crossing them, we're not overburdening any of our perimeter intersections or any other traffic operations that we have. That needs to be paramount. But if we can still have good intersection flow, good traffic patterns and operations, and not have to cross our greenways, we think that's a good planning and design principle, and one that we think is applicable to this project. There's another argument that can be made. It's a little more nebulous, but as a general planning principle, certainly not everywhere in the country, but when it comes to mixing our traffic within different neighborhoods, generally we would not encourage mixing single-family traffic with multifamily traffic. Now, particularly with the style of multifamily that we think will be here, which is kind of its own little neighborhood, to bisect that with a street that then brings and mixes both single-family and multifamily traffic together as one. Although, as I said, I'm sure we can find a number of examples that do that. But from a general planning principle, if we can try to avoid it without negatively affecting anything else, we think that is a good design for the overall neighborhood layout. So those are the reasons that we continue to disagree on the issue. But as Karen said, we look forward to deliberating it, discussing it, and coming up to a successful resolution for that. So that explains kind of how we got to the additional land, and that's the adding of that additional 15 acres that was acquired in January. That's the trigger then that has brought us to looking at the Pinnacle Prairie East. Karen and the staff had asked us, we have to show how this newly acquired land, when we incorporate it to Pinnacle Prairie, how does that fit into the rest of Pinnacle Prairie? And it's a logical request, and to take our design work from that original bubble diagram from 2015 and now incorporate more detail with the streets, with the lots, and more delineation of the open space is a good step for both of us to see how things unfold. But I think you can see that with the layout of Pinnacle Prairie East, in terms of the land uses, we're very consistent with that 2015 plan. In other words, the single family areas that we show on the Pinnacle Prairie East plan, it's the same location for the single family residential as that 2015 plan. The townhomes, same areas, same size. The park space, the greenway corridors, the trail connections are all very, very consistent with that 2015 plan. So we agree that, yes, there's some details in terms of some street networks that might change. I think from our perspective, the two main issues are the creek crossing and the development within the floodplain. Certainly we want to minimize that. And Karen has brought up that there's some issues, and we are familiar with those zoning, with the subdivision regulations, particularly Wendell, who's on the phone with us to speak to that, is familiar with it as he's worked in Cedar Falls for a long time. And we look forward to working through those two issues. I should mention that We don't have a developer ready to immediately develop anything that we're showing in Pinnacle Prairie East. We have had some interest in that 15 acres of multifamily. We've had 2 developers that are interested, but candidly, there's no letter of intent. There's no contract's been signed. What we're trying to do is help us market that property to developers. And if we can come up with the appropriate zoning and the appropriate concept plan, that will aid us in the marketing of the property. And certainly those builders, and I think the size of that property is very nice for one builder to come in and acquire that and build a multifamily product. But when that developer does come forward, then of course they will have their own architecture that will need to be consistent with their guidelines. They may have a slightly different product. They may want a slightly different street network that works with their product. And that obviously needs to get reviewed. I think Karen put it very well when she talks about the general principles that we're illustrating in this the Pinnacle Prairie East concept. Those we want to adhere to. We'd like to have consistency with that from our standpoint as well as the city's standpoint. But the details of the product, of course, the landscaping, that's more detail yet to come. But we do have the design guidelines that will kind of establish those standards that they'll be required to have. So that just gives a little bit more insight as to what we're trying to accomplish from the development side with our rezoning and with the Pinnacle Prairie East concept plan. And I said I've got Carrie Hansen and Wendell Lucas with us to answer any questions that you might have at this point. We do look forward to working further with the staff and coming back for another meeting in the near future.
All right, thank you, Mike. I'm gonna see if I can turn on Wendell as he's got his hand up. Wendell, you there?
Okay, I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay, you're on.
All right. Okay, yeah, I talked with Mike and Carrie this morning. Couple of things. I'm not obviously a traffic engineer, but I guess one concern I have is until we know whether Huntington Road is going to have a roundabout and be connected into the development, we kind of are hesitant to add another crossing until we know whether that's actually going to be a connection, which would be a fairly major connection. But we did also talk quite a bit about the floodplain type things. And Karen, I don't know, can you bring up that one aerial photo that shows that existing detention basin south of Lutheran? Yeah, that one right there.
That one?
Right. So immediately south of Emmanuel Lutheran is an area detention basin currently. If you look at the Pinnacle Prairie East concept plan, that's not shown there. So what we'll eventually need to do is relocate that to the east, incorporate it with other stormwater management features. And so at the time that we do that, we're probably going to want to look at perhaps realigning that drainage way between the Emmanuel Lutheran and where Green Creek goes north and south. The alignment currently was set by the last glacier that went through here. And as far as an actual planning development, we would work with planning, engineering, the DNR and FEMA, and actually take a look whether that's cost effective or not to relocate that, to regain those lots. But that's something that needs to be worked through yet. So.
Well, Wendell, are you suggesting that there could be a connection from Huntington Road into this development?
Well, I think that's being considered currently by the city and another engineering firm. They're looking at that.
Okay.
Are Wendell and I both, this is Mike again.
Yeah, you're back.
I'm still there? Okay.
You're still there, Mike.
All right. We had considered that. As we've had discussions with Snyder and Associates about the roundabout and get some easements and some right-of-way from us. I think we would still plan on not crossing that greenway. I think that roundabout at Huntington is a great idea. It's going to be a great public improvement. But again, I think with the traffic pattern that we have on the west side and the access to Viking and Oster Parkway and Green Hill, that we still provide good traffic circulation and good intersection flow without that crossing, whether it be down directly west of Huntington or the one that we were talking about earlier, a little bit further to the north. So it is another option, but in our analysis, and again, we're not traffic engineers, but in our analysis and from our professional experience with the size of development and the access that we have out to the Viking Road, which takes us to the east, or Green Hill that takes us to the east, we wouldn't think that crossing would be necessary there as well. Although admittedly, it would help the commercial land use with additional traffic there. But even with that, we don't think that it's justifiable.
Okay. All right. And then I've got Carrie. It looks like you're part of the team too, right? You got your hand up. I'm going to try to allow you to talk here.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, there you are. You're on.
Okay, I had to unmute. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carrie Hansen. I'm with Shoppy Design. I did want to follow up a little bit on the issue of the roadway connection, and then how we have designed the multifamily and actually the commercial as well, and the extensive trail network that we've had to connect those areas to the rest of the Pinnacle Prairie development. If you look at the Pinnacle Prairie East concept plan, Karen, if you could pull that up. Okay, so if you look to the west of the multifamily area, you'll see that there is a trail system that runs pretty extensively north and south, and the intent of that would be to connect it not just to Pinnacle Prairie, but to potential future trail system to the north. But it also will take that particular neighborhood down with the ability to access the commercial area. You'll notice in the single family area that there's a system of trails that also connects to that north-south, so that the folks in the single family areas can also access that commercial without having to get into their car and do that. So there is an extensive pedestrian connectivity to this plan, albeit it doesn't vehicularly connect that cul-de-sac to the multifamily. Our intent all along has been to certainly connect the people through that trail system. And I did want to talk a little bit, because it was mentioned, about the open space, because we knew that was something we needed to maintain if we were going to add the new areas to the overall Pinnacle Prairie project. I can tell you, we haven't done the full analysis of how it relates to the 700 plus acres, but I can tell you for the multifamily section that even without using the floodplain, that the amount of open space on that site plan is almost 47%. And that the amount of parks and we've determined kind of that center area and the dog park to be the more formalized park areas, that's about 10%. So just to give you an idea of the kind of design that we're talking about and intending for not only the multifamily, but if you look at the townhome area too, you'll notice that there's a significant amount of open space in that project as well. And that's really something that we want to maintain and preserve as a fundamental element of any design that we do in Pinnacle Prairie, is to really be sensitive and respect those natural features and the open space corridors.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the development team who'd like to make some comment?
I think that's got us all.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Okay.
I will open this up then to general public for comments and others who are in attendance. And I see I've got Daniel. I'm going to try to get you turned on here. Do you want to unmute Daniel? I think you can speak. You should be able to speak. Yeah, you there, Daniel?
Yeah, I clicked it.
Great, you're good. We can hear you. So go ahead.
I'm Dan Fensel. I'm the guy that delivered 70 or so signatures to the office yesterday in objection of this plan. I guess I'm spokesperson by default.
All right.
I had a lot of conversations over Labor Day weekend with the residents of our community. The residents of the current Green Creek Road residential community, we came here some 10 to 15 years ago. And when we bought our homes or laid the foundations of our homes that we live in, we really cemented into our future the city's master plan. We invested hundreds of thousands of dollars individually and millions of dollars collectively in this master plan of development presented to us by the city. The master plan clearly laid out our plans and expectations for our community, and it still does. Expectations of a quiet and peaceful community of city family dwellings with green space ponds and to control flooding and walking paths. Our expectations were and are, in fact, the city's promise to us. We believe the city's promise, and now we see before us, honestly, a plan that begins to destroy that promise and the expectations and the visions we brought into and have kept for our community. We can't simply load up our homes in a cart and shop for another area. We believe the city and we are now cemented into place in the plan. We see a change before us of going from residential to mixed use. That could substantially reduce the value of our property, potentially cost us thousands of dollars, increase traffic and congestion, remove some green spaces, tranquility and single-family dwellings, and destroy our vision of the future. We don't want to look out our backyards and see multi-level family housing or business parks and the traffic that it brings. We'd like to look out and see what was planned, what was promised. Quiet, single-family residences. In looking at, if you bring up the Prairie East plan again for me, if you could, Karen. We see before us, there's plenty of room along Viking Road to place multifamily housing, which would allow for better integration of the increased traffic, especially on the east side and the south of the area that is designated for single-family housing. We strongly object to the proposed change in plan of development. The multiple pages of signatures before you, I think, attest to that fact. We aren't opposed to affordable multifamily living complexes. We are, however, opposed to seeing them dropped into the green spaces or our backyards. There are areas in the master plan and the Prairie East concept plan, we believe, to accommodate multifamily units, commercial buildings, and business parks. We ask that the developer should be required to build where they're designated and depicted in master plan, or on the Viking side of the development where the traffic could be integrated more into the flow of traffic on the outside and wouldn't make the streets so busy in the single-family housing residential areas. We expect the city to honor its commitments and keep its promises and to continue the development of our community with green spaces, walking paths, and ponds, and the single-family residences according to original master plan. We think the Prairie East Concept Plan is a good plan. The fear is that rezoning this area to mixed use can corrupt the promises previously made by the city as retaining it primarily for single-family housing. And those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that. Let me get my list back up here. Is there anyone else in attendance here who would like to talk? Please raise your hand and I will recognize you. I'm not seeing any others. Oh, here we go. I've got one. Jill Hansen, I'm going to try to allow you to talk here.
Jill Hansen's going to talk. Jill Hansen.
Yeah, no, I live on Green Creek, just a few houses down from Dan. And I think he worded it very well for our intentions of that area. And when we did move in and buy and we all asked about what are the intentions of what's going to be behind us. And like Dan had mentioned, the promises of what we thought and what we anticipated. So again, I just wanted to voice my support of what Dan shared with you all.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Any of the other folks that are on the attendees list here would like to make a comment? Please raise your hand. Come on. Seeing none, I see Mike want maybe a little follow up here. I can get you back on, Mike. Should be good.
Okay, yeah, but unmuted.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, and I appreciate the residents taking a look at our proposal and providing some correspondence to the city. When we talked with Karen yesterday, she mentioned that she had received a letter. She forwarded on the correspondence to us, and I just wanted to clarify with the residents here that in the paperwork that was submitted, they did make a note to try to clarify their points. They made a note on a copy of the Pinnacle Prairie East Concept Plan. Karen, did the commissioners get a copy of that? Do you know?
Yes, I forwarded a copy of that petition to the commissioners today.
Okay, great, thank you. I just wanted to clarify on the page of the petition that shows the concept, the Pinnacle Prairie East Concept Plan. They had handwritten a note that says, and I quote, "We propose all of the yellow area to remain R1 single-family housing only." And we agree with that yellow area should be single-family housing. Now most of it is a technicality, is zoned MU, but I think the intent from what I'm seeing from the petition is that the neighbors would like the yellow area shown on that plan to be single-family. And just to clarify, we agree with that, and that's what we are proposing. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mike. I think, though, that the area that they're really don't care for is that multifamily neighborhood right immediately off Cedar Heights Drive, if I'm understanding correctly.
And we're certainly happy to discuss it further with them. But the additional page of their petition, it's a copy of what looks like a plat, a copy of the plat, and it's got, again, another note that tries to clarify their concerns. And I'm reading from it again. The westerly half of the proposal has been hatched in red, with a note that says, "We object to this part of the proposal." And this part of the proposal is referring to the western half of this new land that we've acquired. And we agree that the western half, or the western portion, roughly the western 1/3 of that new property we've acquired should be single family. And if we're misinterpreting their notes. We'll certainly love to work that out through them and discuss it further. But I'm just going from the comments that they've written on the petition.
I would suggest it might be a good idea for you to connect with representatives from the neighborhood, just to make sure you're all on the same page. That would be beneficial.
Sure, happy to do that.
All right. I've got, looks like, hold on, I've got Carrie, I want to try to turn you back on. See your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to suggest that if Daniel or Jill or anybody that would like to speak on behalf of the residents could give their contact information to Karen, and then we will reach out to them and, you know, try to set up a similar type of Zoom meeting given the circumstances. But certainly, if we could have their contact information forwarded to us, we do have a copy of the petition. But if you could provide maybe an email address to Karen, and then we can reach out to you, or a phone number. And obviously we don't want that on the petition or the information from that. So if you could do that, we'll coordinate with Karen and absolutely reach out to you folks.
Great, thank you, Carrie. All right, Jill, I'm going to try to get you back on here. I think you should be good, Jill. Are you there?
Yep, can you hear me okay?
Yep, go ahead, Jill.
Okay, I know when we logged in, we had to provide our email address. Will Karen have access to that?
I don't.
I don't have access to what you logged in with the Zoom. So I do think there was a couple phone numbers that were listed on the petition. So we have that information, but certainly you can reach out to me at the city with your email addresses. And we could connect that way, and then we can find all sorts of means to connect you with the development team.
Karen? All right, Daniel, I'm going to try to get you back on here. Yeah, I think if you just unmute, Daniel, you should be able to speak. Can you do that? Should be good. Are you there, Daniel?
Yeah. Am I there?
Yep, you're good. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't have any further comments. I can deliver my email unless you'd like me to give it to you now.
I think you could just connect with me after the meeting. Just go ahead and send it to me. I think maybe, Daniel, we have corresponded on other matters, so perhaps we already have that information.
I think you do, yes.
Okay, so I think we can do that pretty easily.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Zarin. I've got one more, Ryan, who wants to comment. Well, let's see if I can get you on here, Ryan. Go ahead. I think you can unmute yourself, Ryan. You should be good.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Well, you're on.
Okay. I guess my only thing to kind of piggyback off what Daniel was talking about is I understand changes and developments, and that's part of some things that happen in the course of developing plans and cities and so on and so forth. My only concern would be, I guess, in the big picture of things is I know the plan is right now what you're saying of keeping all those single family homes and developing some green space and all those things in the larger portion behind Green Creek Road. But that being said, obviously we've already seen two changes already, or one change, I guess, maybe possibly two if I didn't see that correctly, of proposed developments in a different way than what was originally, platted or planned out. I guess from just, again, a trust, big picture standpoint, I guess one of my concerns would be what's to say 5 years from now we're having another discussion over another 15 acres that includes more commercial and more, not necessarily multi-family, but, higher level 3-story buildings of living, so on and so forth, that would change the general concept of, again, what was the original plan 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was. I guess my concern is just more of, is this going to turn into a domino effect? Today it's 15 acres or 14 point, whatever it was. Is it 5 years from now going to be another 15 that's, hey, we're changing it now to this? and we're getting rid of more single family homes and turning into more commercial, so on and so forth. Whereas, 15 years down the road, that original plan is nothing what it originally was, which would seem to be a very nice design. I don't think any of us had illusions of that area behind us not being developed at some point. I think we all knew that. It's just the general concept of, is 15 years from now, that original plan, is it just going to be a, for lack of a better term, a shell of what it originally was when it was a nice plan? I know that's nothing you guys can probably necessarily answer tonight or give any assurances, but that's my concern as a resident. Is this going to be another discussion we're going to have 5 years from now, and then 5 years from that, and 15 acre chunks until the original plan is just a shell of itself? Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ryan.
Ryan, I didn't get a chance to get your last name for the record.
Sorry, Ryan Hansen.
Hansen, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Ryan. Anyone else would like to make a comment? Please signal by raising your hand. Not seeing any at this time, so I'm going to bring it back to the commission for any questions or discussion, comments. It's been a lot to take in.
Marty, I have a clarification question for residents. Clearly, they're concerned about single-family development west of the Greenway. Are they concerned also about the multifamily east of the Greenway?
Yeah, I think Daniel's got his hand up. I'll try to get you back on here, Daniel. I think if you go ahead and unmute, Daniel, you should be able to speak.
Okay, am I there?
Yes.
Okay. As I look at the Critical Prairie East concept plan, on the north side, or on the east side of the 15 acres that was recently purchased, from what I see, there is a continuation of the single or the multifamily housing that's already there in the Chadwick Apartments and that complex.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's what we're seeing. Yep.
Okay, I think that's good placement, and I don't think anybody in our community would object to that. One comment that I would make is if you were actually out there and looked at it like I did over the Labor Day weekend, on the south side of the Chadwick Apartments, there's about a 40-foot, 50-foot strip of grass. There's a lot of kids there. They play in the parking lots because they really don't have much play area. If when that was incorporated, if that was set back another 40 or 50 feet, it would give all of those families a place of maybe 100 by 130 feet or 160 feet of grass and park where they'd have room to play and they'd be out of the traffic and out of harm's way. That's the only comment that I have there.
So Daniel, if I'm understanding you right, you're saying that multifamily neighborhood immediately to the south of what the Chadwick Apartments there on the northeast corner, that you don't have any objection to that?
No, none.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Brad?
Yeah, it does.
All right. Okay, we got more. I think Carrie, I'm going to try to, I think if you unmute, Carrie, you can speak if you want to have a follow-up comment.
We're having a good discussion.
I think Dale had his hand up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious as to how many acres are actually in the floodplain there between the multi-family and the single family. In the floodplain, the green space.
Yeah. Quite a bit.
Mike, do you have any answers on that?
Am I on?
Yes.
Yes, Carrie,
Can you hear me?
are.
Okay, yeah, I do have that. 3.02, it's about 3 acres of the of the portion in the multifamily section, and then a little bit, I mean, it's probably slightly larger than that, but of the 15 acres, about 3 acres of that falls within the floodplain.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could clarify as a follow-up to Daniel's comment, to be clear, everything east of that floodplain, that's the area that Daniel noted that's adjacent to the existing multifamily area to the north. That's the only area that's proposed for multifamily. Everything west of the Greenway corridor is single family. We're not proposing to change anything south of the existing subdivision from the original plan for single family. It was single family, it still is single family. All we're doing is proposing to add an additional 6 or 7 single family lots if it were to be divided west of the Greenway corridor. So there is no multifamily proposed west of Green Creek, if that helps to clarify.
Gary, I think to add a comment, I think the concern that's been expressed is that while that's true, you are proposing to rezone the entire thing for MU, which would open it to something different in the future. So
no, it's currently zoned.
There, in terms of the rezoning request.
It is currently zoned MU. The existing Pinnacle Prairie project, all of that single family that's shown on the master plan is presently zoned MU. Right. What we're talking about adding is that 15 acres is in addition to that, the western portion of which would be single family and the eastern portion would be multifamily. But the underlying zoning has always been MU for Pinnacle Prairie.
Us here, it's A1, it's agriculture.
For the 15 acres, you're correct. You're correct. But for the existing Pinnacle Prairie single family that's south of Green Creek, that has always been zoned MU. What the MU will allow you to do is identify what the land use is, and the land use has always been and will continue to be single family. And that is allowed in the MU district. I understand the concern is that you think, it could potentially change. We're not proposing to change that in any way.
Okay.
My comment's really related to the A1.
Okay. Understood.
All right. Well, commissioners, are there any thoughts or questions you have on this, or recommendations on proceeding?
I guess I would offer, is it possible to just rezone the east side of the Greenway to MU? And the A1 is something, that's spot zoning, I guess. So Karen, you can slap my hand for that. But I'm looking for a win-win solution here.
I would just offer that, that of course, just like we're doing today, any change to the master plan has to go through the same process that any kind of rezoning would have to do. So concerns about future changes, of course, things can always change. We don't know what change will bring in the future, but any change that's proposed then to the master plan would have to come back through this public process. So there's an opportunity for any of the neighbors to weigh in on that. And of course, it's always up to the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council to say, no, it needs to stay a single family, and weigh the options that are proposed at that particular time. Just like anywhere in the city, that's, anything is subject to change, and anybody can request a rezoning change. But of course, it's up for the policymakers to decide whether that's a good idea for the community or not. And it provides an opportunity through this process for the public to weigh in on those decisions.
Karen, would we need a motion to table this to allow for the homeowners to talk a little bit more with the developer and then to find some resolution to the outstanding agreement from 2015 with you all.
This is only Leslie, this is only a discussion item for tonight, so it's kind of for information purposes at this point, so we don't need to take any action. Basically, they're gonna take the comments that they received tonight and at some point come back with additional information and proposal that we would maybe discuss, maybe take action at that point or continue discussion, but this is a information introduction tonight, right? Karen, right?
That's right, correct.
Yeah, I think the issue needs to be explored a lot more about the potential road connections. I see the concern and issue with that, so I guess I would ask for more, more discussion and input on that issue as well as the other things that have been brought up tonight. So, hey, commissioners, if there's not any other thoughts or discussion, we can complete this item for tonight and let them go back to work and see what comes for the next round.
I have a question. The rezoning part, does the road discussion have to be figured out before the rezoning and the plan update can be approved? Because that's all we're looking at with this right now is the map and the zoning. Is that correct?
So we missed a little bit. I couldn't hear the first part of your question. Kyle, could you just repeat it? You were a little bit, we couldn't hear you very well.
So my question was if this, I feel like the proposed buildings and the general concept makes a lot of good sense. In fact, I can't really think of what else makes more sense. My question was about this road connection over the greenway or drainage way or whatever, if that really is that pertinent to the rezoning and to the map update, because we're just looking at the map update and the zoning, not necessarily a plat. Is that correct?
So certainly when it gets to the planning stage, we'll know more details, but the mixed use zoning designation requires a master plan, which would include streets. There's a whole list of things in the zoning ordinance that are required as far as details to a master plan in order to rezone a property to mixed use. So that comes kind of hand in hand with the designation as mixed use. That's why we've asked them to update their master plan accordingly.
Okay. Well, I agree with the thinking that the road crossing the greenway is a little much, particularly since there's different uses and types of traffic. I liked that thinking, but more than anything, because the dimension, the north-south dimension seems to be small enough that I'm struggling to come up with anything that design-wise would really make sense to have a big bustling shortcut running through a little micro community. And I like what I like what I saw earlier, and it it makes good sense as a balance of all things. And if a easterly connection to the Pinnacle Prairie community is being eyed at Huntington long term, however far down the road that be, I think that makes good sense too. If we were to be looking at Huntington and something, I feel like if we were to interject a bunch of traffic, cross traffic from the future residential area through this little multifamily development, it could create some traffic problems on Cedar Heights there, where it's kind of a big, straight, fast downhill section. Huntington makes more sense to that to me, just at a quick glance. So those are just some of my initial thoughts.
Let's go. Any other questions or comments before we call it a night? Seeing none, I will we'll end our discussion on that item, and I'll pass it back to you, Karen, to see if there's any commission updates before we adjourn.
So I do have an update. We are ramping up again for the College Hill Visioning Project. That will be coming up. We're hoping to have this time we're going to have a virtual design charrette. So we're going to try that. That's going to be happening the first week of October. And so stay tuned for that. We'll provide more information about the specifics of that design charrette. Should be available on the website soon. And I can give you more details at your next meeting as well. But we, of course, would hope that the commission would participate in those opportunities. What we're planning is opportunities for people to zoom in for the main design charrette, but then other opportunities for people to see that progress that's being made. So daily updates by the development team to show the public, how they're incorporating the comments they've received into the vision for the College Hill neighborhood. And so we're hoping that will be successful in this time of the pandemic, and that people take the opportunity to do that. They don't have to come into a meeting that way. So hopefully people will be used to this forum that they can join in for that. So we're hoping for good participation from the community. We also want to mention that the resilience plan the city has been working on is just starting to kick off that project. And there'll also be the weeks before the design charrette for College Hill Visioning, there'll be some opportunities for the public to weigh in on various aspects of sustainability and resilience for the community for that planning effort as well. So lots of good opportunities for the community to really plan for the future of Cedar Falls. So stay tuned for more details on the exact schedule for both of those important planning events.
Great. Thank you, Karen. That's good stuff.
There was a lot of chatter last night about getting back to chambers. Any news on how that might be affecting us or when?
I don't have any update on that. So more to come, I'm sure.
Hang on, we'll see where we go.
Well, I didn't want to say anything last night because there was enough noise already. But one thing I was thinking, if there are some internal meetings that come up, seems like Waterloo's been doing kind of a hybrid, and I thought it'd be really neat with the great workaround that the Zoom platform's been, and we've gotten so used to it. If we could kind of keep it alive once we are back in the chambers, so that way, if somebody's out of town, they could still attend the meeting virtually. I think that'd be the best of both worlds as we look longer term into the future.
Yeah, that can be very beneficial. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for long and hopefully productive meeting. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.